All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about Jordan Love's recent comments on the Packers' upcoming season. So, very optimistic about the upcoming season and really does believe that this team has a chance to compete for a Super Bowl. The Packers made moves addressing the running back position, as well as bringing in Xavier McKinney, addressing the safety position. So, those are solid moves. Now, the one thing I'll say is I do kind of wish that they were able to make it work with Aaron Jones and keep him around to pair with Josh Jacobs, because I think that would be a really good duo for this team. But unfortunately, they really wanted Aaron Jones to take a significant pay cut, and the two sides just couldn't come to an agreement, so they ended up letting him go. He goes to the Vikings, and they actually did bring back A.J. Dillon. So, okay, I mean, you at least bring him back on a cheap deal, but A.J. Dillon, he's been kind of a disappointment because, I go back to his rookie season and that game against the Titans in the snow, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns. He had over 100 yards. It was like, wow, this guy's going to be a good running back, and it just really has not panned out. But the Packers brought him back because they needed another running back, and they got him back for cheap, so to go along with Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs is younger than Aaron Jones, so I understand that from that perspective. But for me, I think, listen, Aaron Jones played really well in the playoffs against the Cowboys, against the 49ers. I don't know. I mean, I think I would have tried to make it work. I mean, again, he was injured for most of the season and then came back towards the end of the year. But yeah, played really well in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, you bring in Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs could be looked at as the main guy. And, Aaron Jones could be the guy that comes in when Jacobs needs a break. But it just ended up not working out. But, Jordan Love, he is really confident in this team. That's really what this is all about, is he believes that this team could be a team that competes for a Super Bowl. And this is another team that took a big step forward and exceeded expectations. I mean, their season was a roller coaster. It was up and down, and the Packers ended up finishing the season 6-2 and making the playoffs. And big part of that is because of their quarterback here, Jordan Love. Played really well down the stretch, got them into the playoffs. They upset the Cowboys. And you know what? They had a chance to upset the 49ers as well. They should have won that game too. They outplayed the 49ers. But that just ended up not happening, and they ended up losing a close game. And now going into next year, well, yeah, they're still a very young team, but this team is going to be expected to make some noise in this NFC. And again, the NFC is not as loaded as the AFC, which I have said continuously. And I think the Packers can really make some noise, and I think they really can, compete for this division and maybe even win it. Now, again, I probably still look at the Lions as the favorites, but I think the Packers right now are the second place team. And they could definitely make it as a wild card, as one of the top wild cards, instead of being that last team that makes it in. But yeah, and then they also, made the change with defensive coordinator. They let go of Joe Barry. They bring in Jeff Hafley from Boston College, I believe. So the defense is going to be different, and that was something that Packers fans really wanted. I mean, you had Steelers fans complaining about Matt Canada. Well, Packers fans were complaining about Joe Barry for years, and they finally got their wish when they let him go. And what's funny is I thought the defense actually, played better in the playoffs. So that's why when he got fired, or they let him go, they parted ways. I was a little surprised, not like totally surprised, but a little surprised, just because I thought maybe like when the Packers defense was just melting down. I mean, you go back and they gave up 30 points to the Panthers towards the end of the season. I feel like that would have been the time to do it, but that ended up not being the case. They played better in the playoffs, but they ended up letting him go, and now they have a new defensive coordinator in place. So, and listen, the Packers, like I said, still a very young team. You bring in Josh Jacobs, and they got talented young wide receivers, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. Christian Watson was dealing with injuries, so hopefully in 2024 that's not the case. I mean, the first 2 years that he's been in the league, he's been hurt. But when he's on the field, He's very good. You also got Romeo Dobbs as well. A couple of young tight ends. I mean, if Jordan Love can build off of what he did in 2023, I mean, this team is going to make some noise. And yeah, they had the 49ers on the ropes. They had a chance to beat them. That's the best team in the NFC. So, I mean, yeah, the Packers could definitely make it to the Super Bowl. I mean, look, they split with the Lions. I mean, and that's the best team in the NFC North, right? You know, the Vikings right now, I like their roster, but they don't have a quarterback. The Bears, we got to, they're going to probably draft Caleb Williams, but listen, the Packers still own the Bears. I mean, that's kind of just how it's been. And last year was no different. The Packers swept them. But again, now the Bears are going to have a new quarterback, so we'll see, and they're going to be an improved team, so we'll see how they match up against each other. But right now, I look at the Packers as being the second place team in that division. But I expect them to. I expect them to be better. Right? They finished 9-8. I expect them to win more games than that. And again, we got to see what happens when the schedule comes out. We know what the opponents are, but let's see how it's all laid out, the schedule. How many primetime games they got, what week they're playing certain teams, and things like that. But yeah, I expect them to be a better team. And listen, Matt LaFleur, I've been critical of him, because he's done a lot of winning since, well, not championships, but he's won a lot of regular season games since he's become the Packers head coach. But myself and many others have said, well, that's mostly because he had Aaron Rodgers since he got there. And they turned it around last year. It looked like for the moment, well, you don't have Aaron Rodgers anymore, and it shows. But the Packers turned it around. They won a playoff game. So, got to give them credit. Look at some of the regular season wins they had. Again, they beat the Lions on Thanksgiving, but also they beat the Chiefs at home, which, again, the Chiefs were, still struggling offensively, but still, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl, of course. But that was an impressive win. That was when it was like, wow, we really got to take the Packers seriously. And then I think the following week, that's when they lost to the Giants on Monday night, and it was like, well, I guess they're not making the playoffs now. Because, yeah, they lost to the Giants, and then they lost to Baker Mayfield in Lambeau. He had that perfect passer rating. But then the Packers got hot again. They won the rest of their games, and they were able to make it into the playoffs. And then they ended up upsetting Dallas, which it was like I was back in high school watching Aaron Rodgers, beat Dallas in Dallas. It was, well, actually, shouldn't say that. Well, he did it in Dallas, but then he also, in the divisional round in 2014, he beat him in Lambeau. But yeah, it was like, wow, I'm back in high school. Packers are beating the Cowboys in the playoffs. But yeah, again, the conference it's not as loaded as it has been in years past. So there's no reason why they can't make noise. And again, they almost beat the 49ers. So, and they're going to be better next year. So, I think they got a shot. They got a shot. So I'm not going to say, oh, these are just some outlandish comments by Jordan Love. No, I think this is justified, what he's saying, because this team, they were very close to making it to the NFC Championship game and playing in Detroit, because that game would ended up being in Detroit, and they already beat the Lions on Thanksgiving in Detroit. So that would have been fascinating to see an NFC North, NFC Championship game. But we didn't get that. We still got a very good game. Still got a very good game. The two best teams in the NFC. But it was possible we could have saw a NFC North championship game. Who knows? Maybe we see it next year. But yeah, the Packers are another team. I like what they've done in the offseason. I think they're really going to build off of what they did last year. Again, I still look at the Lions as the team to beat in that division. But Packers are right there. They're not going to be a pushover. So I think that division is going to be I think the NFC North is going to be competitive as well. I'm curious to see what the Vikings end up doing in the draft. I mean, it's probably going to end up drafting a quarterback, depending on who it's going to be. But right now, Sam Darnold is going to be the starter for them. So, and we'll see, like, if Justin Jefferson wants out, because that's still a possibility. He could say, yeah, I don't want to play with Sam Darnold. But I don't know. I feel like their offense could be okay because you have Justin Jefferson, you have Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson hopefully comes back healthy. You bring in Aaron Jones. I like what they did on defense. Added a couple guys, and the defense was better because that was a weakness of the team for a couple of years. And then Brian Flores stepped in, and the defense started to play better. They did lose Danielle Hunter, which is going to hurt, but I like the roster. It's just the quarterback situation. I think they could be okay, but we'll see. We'll see. And then the Bears. I mean, if it's Caleb Williams, how is he going to be? So, it's the unknowns at quarterback with the other two teams. That's why you'd put the Packers and the Lions, especially over those two teams right now. They're going to be the top two. Because if the Vikings brought back Kirk Cousins, then you throw them in the mix too. But the Bears and the Vikings right now are going to be battling it now for third and fourth place at the moment. I mean, because listen, Caleb Williams could step in and he could light it up, and then they got to be a part of that conversation. Because again, the Bears played better towards the end of last season, but I don't know. We will see. But let me know what you guys think about Jordan Love's confidence. Do you think the Packers can be a Super Bowl team going into next season? I mean, I think so. I think they have a chance to do it because again, the conference is not loaded. But I mean, is it going to be better? Yeah. But I think the Packers could be a team that can go on a run because they could have made it to the the NFC Championship game. They were close, but they fell a little bit short. So before I go into the next break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following links. So you could either use the original link, which is longer, streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip, or the new link, which is a lot shorter, GSMCPodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, either streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip or the shorter link, which is on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment, GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we are then going to talk about Sean McDermott's comments about the Bills, and what he had to say recently, and that is what we will do when we come back from our second break of the show. So I know it says Bills quest for the Super Bowl. He talks about that, and kind of the outside noise, the criticism that the Bills have gotten for falling short these last couple of seasons. So I'll get into all that, like I said, when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.